right? Here we go. Well, hello and welcome to day 3 of the 6-day Claremont Eco Forum, our 14th International Forum on Ecological Civilization and our 3rd International Youth Forum on Ecological Civilization. My name is Andrew Schwartz. I am Director of the Center for Process Studies and the co-founder and vice president for the Institute for Ecological Civilization. And I'm one of those fortunate people behind the scenes helping to co-organize this conference along with my colleagues from the Institute for Postmodern Development of China and many, many other co-sponsoring organizations that have made this event possible. Today's discussion is a discussion on food and farming for future generations. And the reason we chose that topic was we wanted to think about sustainable, regenerative ways of, I mean, everybody has to eat, right? We all need to eat. That's part of life and what sustains us. But how we relate to land and how we think about food and our agriculture practices need to be considered in light of the long-term well-being of both people and the planet. And our current practices are clearly failing us. So we have a wonderful group of panelists here, some experts are more on the food side, some experts more on the farming side, and even John Cobb joining us spontaneously as a non-expert on either food nor farming, but on all things ecological civilization. So I'm going to ask Angela Yu to step in as our wonderful moderator and to introduce herself and our panelists and get us started.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. And I'm happy that I'm coming back. And I last attended our Claremont Eco Forum. It was 3 years ago. 3 years. Oh my God. Yes, 3 years ago. And I'm glad that we have this conference back again into our life because of the pandemic. We had to join each other online, but it's a great event for me and for my friends. Most of them are farmers, new farmers, or working for a farm, or working for the food, the organic food section. I'm glad that we have a wonderful group for our dialogue today. It will be a dialogue. So I think probably we should let our wonderful guests introduce themselves and introduce their ideas, practice, insights, and those that inspire them or touch the most in their life relating to food and farming for future generations. Is it okay? All right. Where are you? Okay. All right. So probably lady first.
Angela, I'm so sorry. I neglected to inform people of our simultaneous translation function. And I know most of us have probably already heard these instructions from the first 2 days, but if you're joining us for the first time, please be advised at the bottom of your Zoom window, there is an option for choosing your language of choice. And this event is being translated live between English, Korean, and Chinese. So speakers will speak in their preferred language, and you can listen in your preferred language, and that will maximize our ability to communicate across cultures and languages from our friends around the world. So sorry for not mentioning that sooner. Angela, back to you.
Yes, please check your bottom so that you know how to choose language you prefer. How? All right, Miss Pei, do you know how to change your language? Is it okay? Shiyan, are you okay? You're on mute, Shiyan.
没有问题。
All right, okay. So, Shane, do you want to make a start?
好的，大家好，我叫石嫣。
Okay, good morning. I'm Shi Yan. I'm from Beijing, China. I have many identities. The first, I am an owner of organic farms, which is over 300 more. On the one hand, we have the direct marketing, direct sale of our products, and then we have the community support agriculture. This is an international vision. So all the vegetables and fruits in our farms and other meat, eggs products, they are directly sold to over thousands of households in Beijing. So it's directly from the farmland to the household tables. So that's where our profits.
9年时间，还承担了这个就是包括培训大量的年轻人，还有大概我们过去5年时间大概培养了有呃600多个这种就是我们叫新农人，这些新农人他们可能很多是生产者，也有一些是消费者，他们其实不只是想去做一个自己的农场，同时呢，可能他们还在想，就是有没有可能，我们也去成为一个更负责任的消费者。所以其实参加完我们这个培训之后，很多人并不一定，呃，自己就去做农场了，或者做农业，但是他们都在积极地参与这个推动，更健康的饮食方式和更健康的生产方式。同时呢，我们还在中国在推动这个社会生态农业全国的一个联盟，然后从大概12年前这个联盟的建立到现在呢，我们逐渐地把这个联盟变成了一个就是逐渐形成省
alliance.
在中国的每一个省，因为联盟它的这个
among the different
联盟相对来说是一个
provinces.
组织。但是我们希望下一步呢，能把这个联盟从以各个省，中国的各个省为单位去构建。
We established many alliance with the different province in terms of the producers, so we can align the farm producers together. So that's our major work.
So what's your probably plan for the future, because we still have time for you after
我觉得未来10年就是这个合作社
I
的工作
think in the next 10 years,
推动了，因为现在我们在
it's the work for the cooperative farming organization is already a lot of work. We established 9 cooperative organizations in 9 provinces in terms of farming, and we plan to establish this farming alliance around China. So on the one hand, we can organize the farmers together. So we can spread the concept of healthy consumption and organic farming. We hope we can spread these concepts through these cooperative farming organizations. And also we can help those people to sell their farming products.
Sounds that Dr. Shi Yan has been on this front for many years. He received a doctorate degree in one of China's most privileged university. And after that, she went to found this CSA project. And from her sharing, we can see this network is growing bigger and bigger with the with I think with influence into many aspects, how to develop healthy consumer attitude, how to educate our kids, how to educate our consumers, how to raise awareness among common people, how to unite new farmers, which probably is most of them are alone, how to unite the farmers together. And they have been very steady in this road. And thank you for your uh, presentation. And okay,
谢谢。
谢谢。Dr. Pei, do you want to share what do you what's your practice? What's your experience when you trying to, you have been in Korea in environmentally friendly meal, free environmentally friendly meal for all. And we have some similar thing in China, but we don't know what is the situation, and your experience and your insight gained in your many years working in this in this aspect. Do you want to share with us?
네. 네, 마이크 틀었고요. 잘 들리시나요?
Can you hear me well?
Yes.
네네. 반갑습니다.
Great to see you all.
저는 2002년도부터
From 2002,
여성단체 활동을 하다가
I have been working with many activist group, and I became parents of my children. So I have been interested in the school meal and school system my children are attending. And back then, many parents are interested in the school meals because back then the school meal was not that well developed. So I have been engaged in the school meal activism from that time. So together with other parents, we have been monitoring the school meal, and we build the governances to control and manage the school meal. But if we just limit it to improving the school meal quality in one school, that is not enough. So we expand our activities to have an influence into the government. So we organize a team, and the first task we worked on is to improve the systems of the school meal related systems. And we set out three goals to improve the general quality and the system related to the school meal. First is that there are many suppliers for the school meal, and they work together with the public schools to provide the school meals only for the profit. They are selling just the meals. And that's why sometimes we face where the low quality and poor quality of food for our young children. So the first goal was to not hiring third-party supplier, but provide all the meals directly. And the second goal is that instead of using imported goods, we focus on to use the domestically produced agricultural produce. And the third goal is a free school meal that was set out in 2002 and around the time. So we drafted a bill about the school meal improvement, and secondly, and that special act was taking a lot of time to be enacted. So the parents took part in a big way to revise the existing law, and sometimes they force the local government to enact related legislation. So it's a grassroots activities, and that have been carried out around 2007, the participants was about 3 million. And we have worked with 230 local governments to introduce new policies and regulations about school meal. Framework is that to use the locally produced agricultural food for the school. That was the key of that new regulations. In the process, in 2006, actually 4,000 school children experienced food poisoning in one school. So on the occasion of that, we request the national policy to enact the school meal law as soon as possible. And we had big demonstrations. Thanks to that, at the end of June, we finally achieved the revision of that law. So instead of hiring third-party supplier, the school has to hire the direct supplier to take care of the quality of the food for the school meal. And that also introduced some partial the school free school meal concept as well. And we also still working with the ordinances and related regulations. And whether it is a federal government or a local government, we urge them to take an action on the new laws. As a result, in 2010, we actually had a local election back then. About 180 people who work in these activities, we got together and gathered the voices to make school meal free. So we created a kind of political platform. So related groups got together to form a national food alliance. And they that alliances persuaded all the candidates for that local election to introduce the eco-friendly free school meals policy as their political agenda. And many of the candidates and the elected government officials accept our platform, and that policy, many of the policies have been practices from 2019, and almost all elementary and junior high and high schools are having free school meals. Not only the Seoul city government, but also many other local governments introduced the free school meals so far. Of course, there were some strong oppositions to free school meal, including some politicians. And even one person resignated from the Seoul city mayor because he didn't want to have a free school meal. But currently, we have achieved a certain social consensus on the free school meal is a must. So we have achieved this much in that process of the time. And actually, the one milestone was that big food poisoning issues, and the many parents are not sit idle, but they raise their voices. So I think it's a good example of a participatory democracy. In particular, in the city of Seoul, the ratio of eco-friendly free school meal is 60% or higher. And actually the number goes up 89% for the public schools. So by doing so, the foundation of the eco-friendly agriculture has been expanded. And currently, what I'm doing is that I'm not only focused on the school meal, but also the general food for the general public, because we have to guarantee the rights of the people to eat the high quality produce. So we rename our alliances to the eco-friendly food policy to secure the right of the eating the quality food. We are having a lot of activities and around 100 areas, we are setting out local food plan. It includes free school meals and the public the meal. We set out the public procurement system to provide safe and quality agricultural produce to everyone. And the second goal is that 5.2 million Korean people are in the fragile and marginalized to have an access to the high quality food. So we also provide some opportunities for them to have a better accessibility. And also when it comes to reduce the CO2 emissions, we are trying to find a solution how we can reduce the CO2 emissions in producing and processing and consuming the food. We are working together with the agricultural groups and the food related agencies and those who are interested in that. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Pei is the founder of co-founder of the National Food Alliance of Korea, and she also is advisor for Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Areas, and advisor for food policy at Seoul government. I'm very excited.
참고로 말씀드리면 제가 서울시에서
Just for your information, when I worked as an advisor for food policy at Seoul, I have been working from 2010 to 2019. And in the process, I helped to set out the 2030 food policy. And now I am done with the Seoul Metropolitan Government and now moving to I am working as a family doctor and advisor for Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. These days, I'm largely working as advisor and educator.
Great, thank you. I find this very inspiring, encouraging, because you are forming a political structure for this eco food and for this to serve our eco food section, to serve environmentally friendly farmers and farms, which is great. It's I didn't expect to know this story, but it's very, very encouraging. And I think our guests might have something to see in response, because I know probably Shi Yan will say something or ask something. She has been working in this too. Let's see. We just have two more speakers. Probably we'll finish with this round and come back to discussion. Okay. And Dr. Jiang Gaoming is from Academy of Social Sciences. He has been working to develop a farm in our home province, Shandong province, where he encourage people to this six not use method. But he's still trying to overcome technical problems. So we will probably invite our another gentleman, Edward Mueller, to participate in our dialogue. Are you there, Mr. Mueller?
Unfortunately, I don't think he was able to join either. But I do have that video from Gao Ming, if you want me to show that. And we also have John Cobb as our organic philosopher expert on the panel.
Oh, you mean Miss Mueller will not be able to join us?
I unfortunately, yes, that's true.
Okay. So this is our ladies show, right? All
The
right.
ladies and John Cobb. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Cobb, welcome.
Well,
And
did
so-
you want to have a film?
yes,
Did I understand, Andrew, that there's something you were going to show?
yes,
Sure,
because-
yeah.
Sure, all right.
Yeah.
Probably we should play the show first, play the video first.
Oh, you want to have me
Right.
first? Okay. Well, I'm appreciate this very much. And one of the things that confirms to me is that South Korea is at the lead in the whole world in dealing with environmental issues at the present time. And I mean environmental issues in the broad sense. So we need to be able to point to a country that has taken so many steps in the right direction. And I think Korea should be very proud. Well, I will just back up. I don't have a prepared speech, but of course I've been thinking about these matters for a long time. My concern is that modernity has led the world to the brink of self-destruction. And probably the most important alternative will have to come from local farming. The likelihood that we will be able to avoid catastrophes of massive proportions is very slight now. I mean, we've already had some preliminary experience of it. That we keep hearing day after day how things have gotten worse than anticipated. Just the last thing I remember reading is that the melting of the ice on Greenland, which has an enormous amount of water stored, that a large portion of that is likely to fall into the ocean rather soon. Well, that's going to raise water levels around the world and speed up the end of the farming in the Ganges Delta, where 50 million people are going to be displaced. The catastrophes coming at us from many directions are deeply disturbing. Another thing, however, that is equally disturbing to me is that up until now, in the great majority of the world, the responses to our problems make matters worse. We think that by developing, I mean, what has been meant by developing is urbanization and moving more and more people farther away from sources of food. Well, one of the things that happens and will be happening, I'm sure, increasingly, is the increased problems of moving huge quantities from one part of the world to another. Simply the use of fossil fuels for that purpose is something we cannot continue. But even if we're willing to take all of those problems and eat that way, there are changes in weather, among other things, will disrupt transportation. War is very likely to disrupt transportation. Civil upset is likely to upset. And when I'm told that in the United States, that the average amount of distance covered by the food on our plates is over 1,000 miles. This is terribly precarious. And I think in Korea, it's not going to be such a problem. And I have taken such joy in China move to rebuild and redevelop and re-emphasize its villages. I think cities of 30 million people cannot be fed by food grown within 100 miles. Inevitably, they will be dependent upon food brought from great distances. Starvation is going to be a major problem in many parts of the world. But the more the villages are emphasized, the more places there will be in China where food will be being produced nearby. I think that lots more planning needs to go into what food is produced. That is, there still probably is a tendency in some areas for everybody to grow rice and not much else. And that's not a healthy diet. But I feel there are wonderful possibilities in China. I was once told there were 1 million villages. I don't know whether that figure is anywhere close to correct. But at least the population of China is moving back to the countryside. Now, simply having people scattered in this way near food, near the production of food, is inherently desirable. The second question is, will they continue to be dependent on Monsanto and still poisoning their food sources? In other words, the fact that people live in a village doesn't necessarily mean there will be wholesome food for them. But there's much more possibility that thousands of villages will produce organic food near them, and they will be able to survive when people elsewhere cannot. So I want to congratulate both Korea and China for being well ahead of most of the world in terms of developing systems through which they can survive. But especially in China, it must not be that you have people in villages, but you must find the ways of using that proximity to develop a healthy diet. And I know many, many people in China are working on that. I'll take time just to mention one other thing. Again, this is especially a concern about China, but it's a concern about the whole world. It takes 10 times as many acres to produce meat, a certain number of calories of meat, as it does to produce vegetables or grain. At least I've heard that with respect to beef. I think it would not be as extreme with respect to chicken. But China has a wonderful tradition of cuisine in which meat played a minor role. I don't mean it was completely vegetarian, but many dishes had no meat in them, and even the ones that did were not huge slabs of meat the way we Westerners eat. But I'm afraid that as China has become more prosperous, its copying of Western food styles has grown. China will not be able to feed itself as a nation if they eat a meat diet. The reason that in Brazil, the Amazon is being cut down is to produce beef, not for eating in Brazil, but for eating in other parts of the world. It's what we eat is very, very important. And I'm not trying to impose some absolutist principles, but we must, the world cannot live on a meat diet. That is simply not sustainable. And I think, I know as an American who are eating, I mean, I don't personally eat meat, but we are eating way more meat than is healthful for us or desirable in any way. So for us to lecture people in other countries about how they should eat is very, very awkward. But it's still, we have to beg you, don't copy us, please. We have made so many mistakes. We are in the lead in destroying the planet. But that doesn't mean we have to be followed. Look at us as the example of mistakes to be avoided. And then there is a real chance of survival. I don't know how soon food is going to become a serious problem, but when we see how rapidly the glaciers in Tibet are melting, and the great rivers that provide so much of the water, the needed water for China and for India and Bangladesh, they will not be the reliable sources that they have been in the past. I think if there's concentration on local production, finding out what you can produce with uncertain rainfall, and often groundwater being largely exhausted, river, I just mean a lot of attention has to be given now to how you can locally produce food, even when it's much more difficult than it has been in the past. We in Southern California, when I came, we had 20 inches of rain. Now that's very, very little, for example, by standards of much of China. But now we're down to 4 or 5 inches. Producing food in Southern California is going to be very difficult. But we could produce a lot more than we are producing now. And it's if we want to survive the crises that lie ahead of us, this is the most important thing. But similarly, we need to learn to eat what can be grown in deserts and stop eating meat. If we don't do these things, billions of people will lose their lives in the decades ahead. So I can assure you of intense interest in what you're doing. It's for survival of the human species, as well as for health and enjoyment of good food. But the same things that make for health and enjoyment of good food also will make for survival of the human species. So it's not, there's no tension there. But I think that very little is happening in the United States to shorten supply lines of food. Very little. And we haven't even begun to deal with this problem. I hope it is being thought through carefully in China. And I think South Korea being relatively small, I mean, as long as the food is grown in South Korea, it doesn't have to go 1,000 miles to the plate of someone to eat. So, okay. That's enough, I think, for me.
Ladies, you're free to respond.
안젤라.
저한테 질문 들어온 것이 있다고 했는데 제가 어떤 것이 들어왔는지 모르거든요.
Angela, I was told that there is a question to me that I wonder what question was given to me on chat box.
All right. Yeah, there's a question for you. And but firstly, let me ask Dr. Shi. Maybe she would like to respond to Dr. Cobb's remark. Okay.
That's exactly what I wanted to do too.
right，实验是不是你想要回应一下柯老？然后 and we will take questions afterwards, okay? Miss Pei。好，你先说。
好的，我想提一个我想就是回应一下科布
I
先生。
want to respond to Mr. Cobb. It is a time for us to reflect about modernism, about development. In China, most people are on a high-speed train. Like on this train, we are not aware of the high speed, how fast it is. So we just follow the train, and our idea, our behavior are along with the high speed development. Actually, we don't know that the train is going to the cliff. If we go faster, we get faster to the doom, and we cannot get rid of it. For now, besides our practice, to make some possibility, we want to share the ideology, like to show more possibilities. For our farm project, our purpose is not to develop a business model. Actually, we want to let more young generations to see what is the village like. In the past, we think village is poor, there's no future in the village. But is there a possibility that we can make it happen to make more young generations or other generation, older citizens, to see that living in the village or working in the village, it is a way, it is a possibility. It can be called as a better lifestyle. That's our purpose to work in this eco farm. And another feedback is that Professor Cobb mentioned the meat overproduction and consumption. Actually, in China, traditional wisdom, it is a system of solutions. For example, in China, we have a Chinese medicine traditional book, and it describes Chinese traditional medicare, and also it introduced the ideas of food. Like in China, we should eat based on the grains. For vegetables, fruits, they are just supplements. For meat, it's just to provide you additional nutrition. So for now, I think we are facing the biggest challenge is the mental aspect. Several days ago, I had a discussion for pesticides forum. It's like so many researchers or pesticide companies, they are talking about the low poisonous of these pesticides, but really rare people, they are talking about what is the healthy plant, what is the foundation. Actually, the plants, they just live with oxygen, with air. And for this natural elements, they are the basic. And for the pesticide, for the chemical things, they are just they have minor effects to the plants. During our discussion of our human health, like we talk about medicines, how to cure patients, no matter Western medicine or Chinese medicine. actually, in some popular discussion, we don't hear many voice like how to live healthily, how to reduce the situation of diseases. What is the element of a healthy life? For me, for plants, for people, for animal, we all live for a very same low conditions. Actually, we don't hear a lot of this from the education or social discussion, but we hear a lot of cure, treatment, medicine. We want to cure people. We want to cure the sick people. So I think this is the wrong point. That's what I want to respond to Mr. Cobb.
Well, I think there's so much in traditional Eastern wisdom that has been pushed aside by following Western economistic, individualistic patterns, that it's just so important that you really keep what is healthy in your own traditions. And I'm especially, frankly, distressed about universities in China. They copied the West in the worst way. It's not education. You Chinese should know from that tradition what education is, and it's not happening. Please don't take me as blaming China. I'm just saying, don't copy a system that is destroying the planet. It's just, and what I'm celebrating is that China under President Xi has made the move to emphasize the villages instead of the cities. That comes out of traditional Chinese wisdom. It doesn't come from Western teaching. So please understand, I'm delighted that China has moved ahead in sensible and wise ways. There's just so much more to be done. And Monsanto is our great gift to you. Please say no.
We are seeing though a growing number of farmers from China, new and old.
I think you are, but there's still a lot of it being used, poison being used, I'm afraid.
True. True. It's a great challenge.
You're doing it. So I'm celebrating the improvement of the last few years. I think China will have a chance to survive in ways that the United States and Europe will not. Please do that. And I really do think Korea will be a model for both of us. It's South Korea is the size of one province in China. And it's easier to make drastic changes in one province than in 20 provinces all at once. So, but the fact that there is such excellent leadership in Korea right now, that's a hope for the world.
All right. Because Dr. Jiang Gaoming is absent from our dialogue because of technical problem, but he can't bear the idea that he's absent. So he sent us a video to participate.
Yeah.
He has been practicing in organic farming in his hometown. It's also my hometown, Shandong province. And they have this 6 not use method, and it's now proven helpful. It's they did well. They are celebrating successes. they have old farmers and new, and they have a higher yield. So he's video sharing with us his ideas and practice, and maybe we should watch that video, so we'll know that there's hope. There's hope, great hope.
Good.
We can do that. Okay.
Hello, my name is Zhang. I'm coming from the Chinese Academy of Sciences Institute of Botany. I'm the principal investigator and also the professor of Chinese Academy of Sciences, UCAS. For the past 50 years, we have done some experiment, a long-term experiment called the eco farming. During our experiment, we don't use any human-made chemicals. We call the 6 no uses. That is, we don't use any chemical fertilizers, pesticide, herbicide, plastic films, hormone, and GMO food of seed. This for this condition we use some ecological method. This ecology we call it use the some you also introduce some traditional method we use for to depend with the farmers. They farm the area in a village in the Shandong province, Pingyi County, Banqiao Town. These villages have these farmers have 15 hectares. We grew some crops like wheat and corn. Why do we use this very restricted method? Because during our of human being food chain, we found around 15,000 chemical things. These chemicals, we produce the chemicals, we create pollution. And also the chemicals, if they entered the food chain and damage our body. For our experiment, how to treat the pest. For the pest controlling, we used some physical plus biological method. For the physical method, we introduced a solar light trip because some insect they are very active during night time, but we catch them and feed with the chicken, and also another thing because we stopped some pesticide, so we encourage some the enemy insect and some birds can return to our agricultural system. So the pest can be controlled successfully without any chemical things, pesticide. How to treat the weed? The weed control is very work for with some laborers to hard work. But we introduce some machine, so use the machine and some labor. So we pay the farmers with some higher salary, have fee the money. So the farmers are happy to do this traditional method, but use some modern technology like the machine. How to treat the illness of the plant, the crops. Firstly we increase the soil and soil organic content, so that the soil becomes very healthy. So the plants grows in these health plant soils, they are very healthy. So they are have some high resistant to the insect. So we created a free illness environment for the plants. How to balance the energy, the elements? The elements we use some every biological things, like the animal, this menu, and also some the weed menu, and with some uh, uh, like the release of the sorry. So I use everything because every organic things contain some nitrogen fertilizers is usually to feed to increase the balance some elements need, especially the nitrogen for the plants. So how about the yield? Some people they are such careful they are about the yield. If they think without chemical things, the yield must be decreased. Our experiment shows this. The yield, if with the higher content of organic matters, the yield increase also. So we achieved one tons of greens for both seasons, 2 seasons, wheat and the corn in each mow. That means 15 tons yield in 1 hectare land. Also, our land we have found the very successfully is that the farmland can store a lot of carbons. We turn the soil into black. Black means some carbons. So our land can store 11.5 tons CO2 per hectare per year. So that it means for the greenhouse emission, we cut down the greenhouse emission as a resource. How about the economic output? This is much higher than the around the farmland used by the chemical method. That's about 3 to 5 times of that with economy. So our method can increase both the ecological, economical, and social as well as social effect. That is, thank you. So I hope someday you can. I invite you to visit our farmland in Shandong, China. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for playing that for us. We are a bit of running late, but I think we do still have some time to take some questions from the audience, right, Andrew?
Yeah, I think that's important. Yeah.
All right. So, can you do you have the question now? Can I assign you a task of reading out questions for our ladies and for Cobb, probably for Dr. Cobb?
Yeah, there were so many questions from the audience. They were very good ones. I know that there was one in particular. So Yoon Jung Han from Korea has asked. Shi Yan said that China is very important in world food because of the big population, but she was wondering, is there any recognition about the animal rights or vegan movements?
Shi Yan, it's yours. Dr. Shi Yan.
我是直接回答是吧？
Yes.
现在其实这个素食的这个
vegetarian
现在素食的这个运动啊，目前特别是最近这个大概5年左右的时间，特别是在大城市有越来越多的人在参与然后还有就是实际上中国的这个疾控中心他们也发布了关于我们叫在中国叫饮食营养宝塔，就是跟这个就是饮食有关的哪些是应该多吃的，哪些是少吃的，实际上也有这样的一个饮食宝塔，然后也有政府的相关部门在推广这个饮食的宝塔。但是目前呢还没有特别明确的
가이드를 보여주었습니다.
Now, as far as I know, there is no clear policy
专门去针对这个动物权利
targeting
和
the
这个
animal
素质
rights.
的这样的一个特别的针对全国的这样的政
So
策。但是
there's
我觉得市场
currently there's no current
因为
policy
在中国其实很
in
多
this
方面都
regard.
是首先是要有一些
But
既有的这
in
种市
China
场的
now,
需求，然后再
we
形成
we
相
have
关的
to
研
first
究，
meet
然后
the
逐渐
market
的去
demand,
推动政策
and
的变
then
化。
we
所以我
can
觉得现在
have
目
some
前市场
research,
已经
and
有了这
then
样
we
的
will
有
implement
包
some
括
policies,
素
have
食的
some
餐
policy
厅啊，还有
changes.
一些
So
素
now
食
we
植
have
食
more and more
植食以
vegetarian
植食为主
restaurants,
的这种饮食的理念，也在
and
逐
this
渐在
concept
展开。
is
好的。
spreading now, step by step.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Another question is for Ms. Bay. So how many children have benefited from your work on transforming food systems in schools? And does your program, is it supported by local governments financially?
It's okay, I understand.
안타깝게도 중앙
Unfortunately, the central government is giving us fund, but that is not enough. So the food, school food is provided free of charge. And so we are working together with 17 local governments. So the educational administrative offices are working together in the 17 local offices. So we are combining all the budget. So from elementary to high school, that we're providing food meal, school meal, and some of the provincial areas are saying that they are also providing, they're going to provide kindergarten meal free of charge. There are kindergarten and to high schools, but if the school are belong to the public administrative offices, that they are receiving free meals. However, but depending on the source of administration, the coverage of free meal varies depending on how that they are managed. And the second meal is public meal from early children to elderly. In Seoul, that there is public meal project, so that we are providing marginalized people some food, free food. So we are connecting farming village and to Seoul. So we're connecting these two cities. So directly we are receiving food products from a certain village. So we're sending that food to kindergarten and to elderly's houses. So this public food project is taking place in Seoul, and we received a special award from Milan Food Policy Pact. It's because our hard work was recognized in an effort to avoid from massive production. Currently, the modern system is a massive production system. However, we value small farmers. We value the importance of diversity in terms of harvesting products, agricultural products, that we understand the importance of variety in terms of food products. So we include small and middle-sized farmers. So in 13 areas of Seoul that we are receiving directly from local farmers. So about 75% are organic products. So this shows that our thorough planning and management between the Seoul and the local government. So this is for us to deal with climate change and also the food issues. So in this era of, wrong food system era that we'd like to start making, revising things and improving things by leading the food system. So we believe that our policy can lay a foundation for coexistence. So Seoul government pursues sustainable rural area. So we believe that the policy, strong policy by the city government can lead, can make a good impact to the rural areas. So that helps us to achieve a sustainable farming, because as we understand the importance of farming, farming not only belongs to farmers, farming, agriculture is the issues of all. So we are continuing to improve agriculture because that affects all. About 4% of the total population is taking care of the agriculture for all. So the agriculture independence is about 46%, and in terms of crops, our independence rate is about 27%. We are worried that the people who are working in the agriculture are dwindling because the farmers are getting old and the young generations are not that interested in agriculture. So we believe that we have to provide education to younger generations to promote agriculture. And these are the efforts that we are putting in place. And at the same time, we believe that we have to provide vegetable rights. Like Dr. Han mentioned before, we have to make a transition to vegetarian approach. Starting from 2010, we are promoting meat-free Mondays. But we have seen that the stark interest confliction among different interest stakeholders, and some of the students are not happy with the meat-free Monday. They like to eat meat. So, but we are pursuing this in a big picture to educate our younger generations. And the second work that we are is that we are introducing a salad bar at school food. And also we are running a local food day. And then we're making sure that the students are not wasting their food. And like I said, that we are introducing vegetable only day. I mean, we are giving authority to schools so they can choose their own school calendar. When we run these programs, that we're providing ecological friendly education, because we tell students that land is important, the environment is important, but underneath that we need to make index, quality index. So the farmers should produce environmental friendly agriculture. And by doing that, we have some kind of quality index, and we encourage the farmers not to feed, some kind of like medicine, like anti-medicine to animals. So we have some indexes that the farmers have to meet quality. So by following the quality index, that they have to send the products to the ends, to the receivers.
이상입니다.
Thank you. That was absolutely fantastic. It's so exciting to hear that stuff. I'm just blown away by how much we're covering, talking about education, talking about policies and politics, the connection to economics, of course, the relation to the health of the land, but also the medicine and health of people. And I just think it demonstrates how complex food and farming is, as we're talking about global systems, but how also central and important it is. And Dr. Cobb, there's a question for you that I think also raises this issue of complexity. It's a wonderful, challenging question from Niklas from Brazil. And he says, how do you think that we can overcome problems that are caused by global interdependencies, continued colonial exploration, and the outsourcing of environmental externalities, et cetera? For example, he says, you think of China as the factory of the world and perhaps Brazil as the farm of the world. What's some advice that you would have, some perspectives, advice for Brazil, for example, on how to move toward an ecological civilization with respect to development practices and perspectives?
Well, the first thing to assume is don't keep doing what we've been doing. And we have been trying to globalize the economy and let every group, every location specialize. And China has become the factory of the world. But I was very glad to hear Dr. Wen say that China now realizes it should produce for Chinese rather than for the world. I think localizing the economy is step number one. And above all, localizing food production. So we're not changing the subject, but of course, in order to have a good society, we have to also have industry, and that every country needs some industry. But we have been trying to concentrate everything in some one place and then ship it 10,000 miles rather than to produce it locally. And that's one of the major reasons that we are so dependent on fossil fuels. But it also means that we're so vulnerable to international relations. I think that was the main prod in the case of China. So I would say, I would strongly recommend that Brazil look at how it can become relatively autonomous. I don't mean absolutely, you don't exchange anything with other countries, but the less Brazil is dependent on having its goods bought by people outside of Brazil, the better. The less Brazil needs to import from other countries, the better. And if you start there, and then I would even hope that you would localize it more. Brazil is a huge country. And the more each section of Brazil is able to be relatively autonomous. See, I would say the same thing in China. Not only is China much more secure and better off if it doesn't depend on imports and doesn't depend on exports, but each province would be the same way. I was commenting, South Korea is the size of a province in China. And I'm hoping it's becoming that, recognizing that becoming autonomous is much better. And then even more, go beyond that to localize even more. But in any case, if we just get out of our heads the idea that the farther away the goods you consume are somehow the better off you are, it's crazy. Billions of people are going to die because of it. And I think that there is a change happening in the attitudes. But nevertheless, the world is run by people who make money out of this integrated global economy. And of course, the United States uses it in order to punish anybody who will not be obedient to the United States. It's sanctioning has become a major weapon. Well, if you know that sanctions imposed by the United States are a major weapon for imperial rule, then don't be dependent upon importing those things. I'm not worried about China and South Korea here, but there are so many countries that are suffering. I think something like 30 countries are now sanctioned by the United States. And often that means that the poor in those countries go hungry. once you allow yourself to be dependent on trade, those who control trade control you. So that's my advice to Brazil. I would get rid of my present president rather quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Hello.
Yes. Hello. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Andrew. It's wonderful because you have been in this chatting area, and I noticed that you share your ideas a lot. It's wonderful, and you should respond a lot. And I'll just take one more question, so we will conclude this this dialogue. It's okay.
So I think,
Right.
do you have a question in mind, or do you want me to ask the question?
No, I will do that.
Okay.
I will do that, and probably the last question. Okay. I noticed that Cliff Cobb was asking something. There's a question for all panelists, and including me. He said, do you have direct personal evidence of farmers who are criticizing the modernization of agriculture from the perspective of traditional thought? Because I have been a farmer for the last 3 years, so I will. It's very tricky. It's very complicated. So I will tell you a story. So about a farmer that I have direct contact with. We have apple orchard, which is abandoned to us by an old farmer who is now probably 60 years old. He strongly criticized the heavy chemical use. So he agreed with us to go the organic path. So he made a lot of eco enzymes. He tried to study organic ways of farming. Nevertheless, he went away 2 years ago, abandoned his apple orchard to us. He went to work as a janitor in the city, a janitor, because then he will have a steady income every month. So it's very interesting example. I'm talking about old farmers, but from the young farmers, somebody like me, I'm very clear. I'm firm in mind. I have firm mind that I'm going to this because I've seen options this and that, go this way and that way, and I'm through that, and this is what I want. But for old farmers, they know the illness, the bad side of the chemical farming, but nevertheless, they will be forced to make their choices. This is the reality we are facing. Okay, thank you for your time. It's a wonderful time we are together. And thank you, ladies. I think maybe we should form a ladies alliance working on this front, because we care about food, we care about children, we care about the future. And we will include you, Dr. Cobb, and if you want.
And, I just want you to do it. Yeah. I want to benefit from what you do.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Shi Yan. It's so wonderful you're here and sharing with us your thoughts and questions and your insight. Thank you, Ms. Pei. And we wish that we'll meet one day in person. And we wish we will really do this this ladies alliance for the world, for ourselves and for the world. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for your time. And thank you, everyone in the audience. And thank you for your question. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Let's go to
Yes.
next
So
one.
Thank you, Angela.
Our
Okay.
yes, sorry,
Andrew?
Xian. Go ahead, Xian, if you want to say something, or
No, I
Shiyan, do you want
just say bye-bye and thank
bye-bye.
you for
Yes.
hosting. Yeah.
So that was a wonderful discussion,
고생하셨습니다.
and it's launching us into our next hour and a half long breakout section. So if you're all available to stay around and to continue this conversation and to go deeper, I encourage you to do that. What I have on my screen here is just a reminder of the five topics that we encourage you to explore in your small group discussions. Asking the question, who are we? This is the self-introduction piece, so that we just have a sense of who's in the room having these conversations, because that's actually important, because you have your own experiences and insights and interests that make a difference to the discussion and the contributions that we're trying to have for these solving complex problems. The second piece is, where are we? This is thinking about our context, thinking about the problems that we're experiencing, but perhaps even some of the good things that are happening in the world. So the where are we is a contextualizing stage, and I think it sets the basis for sort of common knowledge. This is the situation that we face. This is our starting point. This is our shared global context, right? But also, how did we get here? And this is the understanding the underlying causes that have contributed to our current crisis, followed by the where do we want to go section. This is our visioning section. So dreaming big about the kind of future that we want to have. What does food and farming look like in an ecological civilization? John Cobb gave us some suggestions for focusing on local sustainability, and I think there's much we can do in exploring that in greater detail. And then, of course, how do we get there? And how do we move toward that vision that we have? How do we begin to move toward an ecological civilization? And this is this road mapping piece, where we want to be as concrete as possible about actions and steps that can be taken to begin to achieve our goals. So I hope that you'll be taking good notes, and that those notes will be shared onto the website or given to our Andrew Davis, our conference organizer. We'll share his email during the chats. And then all of your notes are being collected and will be distributed for, well, for your own use, but also synthesized into a community statement on ecological civilization, rethinking food and farming for future generations. So that's what we've got. Andrew Davis, if you're ready to put us into breakout groups, we will continue this conversation. Simultaneous translation does not extend to Zoom breakout sessions, but we will have some staff and some friends who have multilingual skills to help us continue this international cross-cultural exchange.